Welcome to the Vantage HR Influencers Podcast. This podcast is sponsored by Vantage Circle, the simple and AI-powered rewards and recognition platform for employee engagement.
When you're stuck in life and all you want to do is get out of the atmosphere you're living in because it's not allowing you enough space to do something significant, you know that you are being mediocre and settling for adequate. In fact, 75% of us fall into mediocrity without even realizing it. We continue believing that we still have the fire in us that got us to begin, but the truth is rather different. And so are the outcomes. And then again, some people are like, what's wrong in being mediocre? Let's break all the bubbles today with this podcast. It will help you question how you have been living your life and give some quick tips so that you don't have to struggle with mediocrity and how you can move from a mediocre to a magnificent life. Hi everyone, I'm your host Shushmita and I have with me today Shilpa Kulshrestha, a multi-awardee, game-changing career coach, TEDx Speaker, Bestselling author of Play It Full, and founder of Scintillate Coaching. Welcome to the show, Shilpa.
Thank you, Shushmita.
Thank you so much for joining me today in this episode of the Vantage Influencers Podcast. So before we talk about mediocrity for HR professionals, would like you to give us a brief about yourself and your journey in the corporate world, Shilpa.
Sure, Shushmita. So if I talk about my journey, I started off with some degree when I say some degree, there were a host of degrees. I started as a CA, as a CPA, as a law graduate, and as an MBA. So everything that is required by the society for us to be successful, I took it all, kept it as a package with me, and thought I'm there set for life. And it started off really well. Soon in my company, which was a startup, I came to be known as someone with a Midas Touch. So anything that I touched, any client, any project, any delivery, it turned into gold. That's what they said. And I loved it. Who doesn't like it, if you're creating success? And my journey continued. A decade or so into my journey, I don't know where it happened, how it happened, but somewhere I started giving my bare minimum. So I became part of the average game. And still, even though I was part of the average game, I stayed in the illusion that I'm still that school topper, the national level ranker, the one with 4 professional degrees, that ego which stops us from getting to the roots of the problem. So I kept going with that illusion. I kept underperforming. And then one day, my company in 2018, they asked me to leave. So they had enough of my mediocre performance. And that was a turning point in my life. That was the bottommost point, because it was like, you are a high achiever and suddenly you're fallen from the sky, or suddenly your dream, your dream breaks. And at that point, I realized that the easiest thing for me is to take that chunk of money. I had worked in the corporate for 16 years. I'd worked with Westpac, my last company, for 9 years. The easiest thing is to take that chunk of money and go and join another company. It's a very usual thing, especially in Western countries. But then the difficult path was to understand what happened to me. Where did I slip? Where did I convert from a high achiever to a mediocre performer? Right. And that started my war with mediocrity. I started traveling around the world, learning from the world-class coaches to ask myself uncomfortable questions. And soon I realized that, as I found my missing pieces, I started seeing a very different Shilpa. I started seeing someone whom I had never met. And I started with this mission, Murdering Mediocrity, because it had been the bane of my life. It has been the pain of my life. It has been the numbness in my life where I didn't know. I wasn't failing. So because I was not failing, I felt that I was achieving, but that was not the case. So that's where I started working with the people, helping them realize, are you doing a great job or are you being a mediocre? And that brings me here talking to you on this podcast.
Yeah. So you're also the founder of Scintillate Coaching. So what is Scintillate Coaching all about?
Scintillate Coaching is the company that I run with my husband, Shilpa Kulshrestha. Okay. So what Scintillate does It works with the people who are in their mid-career. So people who have worked for about, 12, 15 years, at least, around 1.5 to 2 decades, and who are at that point where they have achieved some really amazing things in the past. But at this point, they are not loving what they do. It has become routine. It has become easy. It has become, just something where they are part of the hamster wheel, or they are putting in efforts, but the returns that they are getting, it's not proportionate to the efforts that they are putting in. Somehow they are not enjoying it, basically, and they feel stuck. So Scintillate helps those people to figure out what is it that they want to create in their life. It can be their next promotion. So in some cases, people were stuck in the same position for as long as 9 years. They just couldn't get to the next level. And these people are people who are senior directors wanting to get to a VP level, or different designations, different roles, but they are stuck somewhere, or they want to get a job, but it is very difficult for them. So we help people in getting promoted, getting jobs in as short as 3 to 4 months, doubling salaries. Some people have gone up by 4 levels in just a period of 16 months. So amazing things, it just helps you create the next big thing in your life.
Brilliant, Shilpa. So talking about mediocrity today, would you like to define mediocrity before we talk about the other things related to it? Like, what do you mean by mediocrity? Yeah.
Brilliant question. Yeah. In fact, I didn't even know this term until 2018. I had never thought about this term. It didn't exist in my dictionary. It was only when I realized that I had somewhere become the part of average game. So what happens is when we start in career, there's a lot of enthusiasm, there's a lot of excitement, there's fire in the belly. And for a few years, we do really well. But then the priorities of life start showing up. And it happens with both men and women. But in my case, especially, it was, you get married, you get pregnant, you get kids, and then you have multiple priorities, you move cities, you move countries. And in somewhere in all this process, there came a conflict between my family and my career. And I kept putting my career in the backseat. And I didn't realize when it, just became something that I was going to 9 to 5, doing what was expected. I was a diligent worker, so I wasn't wasting time, but doing just what is expected, but not doing anything more than that. And that resulted in me getting into the average game, which happens with a lot of us, where we have picked up careers which we haven't really given a thought to. We picked it up because that seemed to be the way of the world, whether it's engineering, whether it is CA, whether it is becoming a doctor, whatever you have done. But at a certain point in life, you realize that you're not loving it, or it has become very boring. So that results in you not really working up to your potential. And you have that feeling, you have those thoughts, but you have been shoving that away. You know it at the back of your mind, but you have not actively taken out time to do a deep dive inside. Am I really working up to my potential? So when we leave that question unanswered for a very long time, we get into what I call mediocrity.
So does this, Shilpa, relate to ladies, the working ladies more? Because as you said in your case also, trying to maintain a good balance between work and life, and then priorities after marriage. So does this mediocrity thing come into the lives of the working women more than the men who, do not seem to have that kind of responsibilities after a married life maybe?
I would say this is such an excellent question, Shushmita, and I would say no one has ever asked me this. So amazing. It comes equally to men and women in different forms. Women, because we are conditioned from the childhood by our moms, our grandparents, by the stories that we have read in the childhood. That family is always
this is
the
your
top
priority and this is not your priority.
Yes,
from very childhood.
Exactly. So that's why women, and because they are wearing multiple hats, it comes for women. But for men also, you'll be surprised, because men, men are they have been seeing themselves as the bread earner of the family. So their primary focus has been to make a living, to pay the bills, to keep that, hamster wheel going, to keep that clock going, keep that wheel going. And they have been so busy that they have not actually thought about, can I take a break for that? I remember when 2018, my husband took a break. So he just resigned from his job because he was not liking it. He was a director in Cognizant. He came out of it, and my mom only asked him, why did you do that? And how will, you guys pay the bills? And he said that Shilpa is earning. That's fine. And then it was so difficult for my own mom to digest that he wants to take out some time and figure out what his passion is in life. And it worked amazing for him. But how many men are actually able to, have that
risk
hard to sit back and do? So it comes to both men and women. 50% of my clients are men and 50% women in every program that I do. So I wouldn't say that it comes to more working women. It comes to both of them in different shapes.
Men and women in different times, in different phases of life.
Absolutely.
So what exactly makes us mediocre? Is it the pressure, or what are the things that we can consider making us mediocre?
So it all starts with us giving into the definition of the society, us picking up professions or doing degrees which we weren't passionate about. I don't remember if I had heard the name passion at that time when I was doing my CA. I don't remember. And so it starts like that. And over a period of time, what happens is, because those are safe professions, we start making good money, big fat paycheck lands into your bank account, you have got a big house, you've got the best cars in the world, you get used to a certain lifestyle and it becomes your comfort. So the comfort is the second thing where, we say, chal raha hai, chalta rahega kind of thing. It just goes on. It just goes on. It never stops.
Right.
So we forget to ask ourselves uncomfortable questions. How am I performing? Am I doing well? When I look back in my career of 16 years in the corporate, I was very busy, Shushmita, day in, day out. I remember even when I had my baby, I went to the office as usual on the last day of my pregnancy, came back at 5, went home, cooked rajma rice, and then went to the hospital and had the baby in my hands at 9 p.m. So what I'm trying to say, I was busy throughout. I don't know what was I doing, but it was all a mediocre performance. I staying in the ego that I am busy, I am indispensable, and that all that big house, big car, which we all get at some point in life, or each one of us, that kept me in my comfort zone.
And talking about mediocrity, and as our podcast is all about, talking to HRs and talking for HRs, so would like to know what exactly breeds mediocrity among HR professionals.
HR is a function where I have worked. In fact, for the last 5 years in my career, I was working on HR projects. So I've seen this world from very near. So what happens with HR people is that it is very easy to get comfortable. I've seen people who go in HR, they stay there for years. It becomes their home. They stay in the same company. So one drawback is people see HR as a support function, right? So it is something which is meant to hinder what they are doing. And I know we HR professionals don't like it, but it is how the rest of the world sees finance and HR, as something which is meant to create blockers in their way than to aid them. So this is what we see all around. It is easy to get lost in the processes. We know HR is known for the processes. It is easy to say this is not how it works. And when we say those kind of things, you kind of get into a habit of taking a backseat and showing the processes in the face of the people. And I remember the people when I was in HR, they were always some people who had a way around processes. So those are the people who went to the top. But the other people, most of the people, I would say 90% of the people was hiding behind the processes because it was comfortable to tell the people this is not how it works, or this is the process, and then just let the people deal with it.
No, this is how it works, actually.
Yes. Show them the process and just hide behind it. So it is very easy to fall into the comfort zone in an HR world. And only those people who think above and beyond are the ones who are able to get into that superstar kind of identity.
Yeah. So I'd like to know more about that, like talking about stepping from mediocrity to magnificence in the world of HR. So what do you mean by being open and flexible in being an HR professional?
So I have worked between me and I worked for organizations like Deloitte, Tech Mahindra. My husband has worked for Cognizant and Microsoft, and so some of the best names in the industry. And everywhere we have seen that when we have to deal with an HR professional, it is about, they are going to make the life hell. That's the mindset with which the rest of the world comes to HR. And then me, again, shifting into HR and seeing that closely, I can say that what it means from moving from mediocrity to magnificence is becoming that go-to person, becoming that superstar in the HR world who is always ready to challenge what the process is and the one who goes above and beyond. So I don't know, Shushmita, if you look in your company or in the companies that you have worked for, anybody who's listening to this podcast, you can clearly identify few people in the HR team, in the various HR teams, who are different, who go above and beyond, who become the go-to person for business or whoever deals with them.
There's always one in every organization.
There's always one, and there's always one in a team, right? And you can easily spot them. I would say magnificence is that, if you really want to visualize that for yourself. So become that go-to person, become that person who challenges the norm, become that person who is not about the process, because anybody can put process in the face of the people, but the person who works with others to make things happen. And that's what will take you to that magnificence or the extraordinary world for an HR professional.
Brilliant, Shilpa. So any advice that you want to give to the HR professionals who are listening to us today?
My biggest advice would be go above and beyond. We have forgotten to do that in the HR world. So go above and beyond, be the person who makes it happen, and give up giving up. So most of the times we give up because that has never happened in the history of the company, or there has never been a case, but you can do something which has never happened. So give up giving up. That's what I would say to the people.
Also, Shilpa, just wanted to know, after how many years of corporate life do we begin to become mediocre? Or it depends on the work also, like what kind of work you are doing?
It does depend on you, and it also depends upon how much you love your work. So I have seen some people, if we talk specifically from HR professionals' point of view, I've seen some people who come there and it has become a routine. They come, they do the work 9 to 5, they go home, they make dinner, they watch TV, they spend some time with the family, they sleep, and they get up again to come and do some routine work.
Right.
So make sure that you do not fall into the routine work, which is the biggest mistake that I did. I wasn't creating any value. So the moment, whether it is 2 years, whether it is 10 years, whether it is 2 decades, the moment you start feeling that I am not adding value and I'm stuck up in the rut, in the routine, doing things which are not giving me juices, know that you have become a mediocre. And that is, the onus is on you to challenge it and to, change the way things are.
Right. Thank you, Shilpa, for sharing your advice. Any resource, any book, any podcast, or any movie that you want to suggest to our listeners to know more about what we discussed today?
I would say for those people who want to really keep how they're performing in check, please do follow me on LinkedIn, Shilpa Kulshrestha. You can just search. I'm sure there are not many Shilpa Kulshrestha there.
Yeah, I'll be linking your LinkedIn profile in the show notes.
Yes, or just look for my TEDx talk, Murdering Mediocrity. That will also give you a great idea about, what mediocrity is and how does it show face to the people. Those are the two resources, simplest ones to go to.
Okay, brilliant, Shilpa. So finally, how can our listeners reach out to you if they want to know more about Murdering Mediocrity?
Yeah, so just send me a message on LinkedIn. I love to reply to every single message on LinkedIn, or shoot me an email at shilpak@scintillate.com.au.
Okay.
Would love to, be in touch.
Great, Shilpa. Thank you so much, Shilpa, for being here with me today in this podcast and for sharing all your insights and all your experience with us today. With this, we have come to the end of today's episode. You just heard Shilpa Kulshrestha talk about Murdering Mediocrity. We'll be back with more such enlightening episodes. Until then, stay tuned to the Vantage Influencers podcast.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Ishmita.
Thanks for listening to the Vantage HR Influencers podcast. Please do subscribe to Vantage HR Influencers podcast on Apple Podcast, Spotify, and our YouTube channel for new episodes.